Like, I always think of like, hey, Mr. Taliban, tally me a banana. There's a guy on the front page of the New York Times who literally has the thing called the Extinctionist Movement. And he was quoted on the front page of the New York Times as saying, there are 8 billion people in the world, but it would be better if there were none. Ooh. And I'm like, well, buddy, you can start with yourself.
Yeah. Does he have friends? That's what always fascinates me.
Well,
here he is.
That guy.
Well, he looks like he's not long for this earth.
I mean, he's not
Voluntary
young.
Human Extinction Movement. That's hilarious. I'd like to party with that dude.
Okay,
I would just like.
That's an explicit version of the death cult.
Yeah, maybe
the
live
extinctionist
long
cult.
and die out.
It's not. Extinction is a word he uses.
Yes.
No, I mean it's not. It's literally a self-description.
Did they cover him
that death
glowingly?
cult was in charge of social media.
Yeah.
And still largely is at Google and Facebook, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not in favor of human extinction. They are, and they can go to hell.
Well, that guy is.
Yeah, he can go to hell.
That guy seems silly. I
well,
would like to hang
it's-
out with him, though. I would like to find out what makes him tick. I bet that guy is fascinating.
Well,
if you get him alone for a few days,
I mean, I'm in
dig in.
favor of. I mean, I'm pro-environment, but in the limit, if you take environmentalism to an extreme, you start to view humanity as a plague on the surface of the earth, like a mold or something.
Right.
But this is actually false. The Earth could take probably 10 times the current civilization. The population you could 10x the population without destroying the rainforest. So the environmental movement, and I'm an environmentalist, has gone too far. They've gone way too far. If you start thinking that humans are bad, then the natural conclusion is humans should die out. Now, I'm headed to an international sort of AI safety conference later tonight, leaving in about 3 hours. And I meet with the British Prime Minister, a number of other people. So you have to say, like, how could AI go wrong? Well, if AI gets programmed by the extinctionists, its utility function will be the extinction of humanity. So, I mean, there are times when masks are warranted, but most of the time it's actually counterproductive.
Well, that was one of the things about the old Twitter was the propaganda and the adherence to whatever the CDC was saying and the dismissing of legitimate scientists, guys like Jay Bhattacharya from Stanford and legit guys.
Yes.
And they were suppressing them and even banning them. They banned Alex Berenson. I mean, it was wild. They banned Alex for essentially reading peer-reviewed papers.
Yeah. No, I mean, all Twitter was basically an arm of the government.
Yeah.
So
was that shocking? Like, what was that like? Because to me, that was the most bizarre. Was the Twitter files when you let Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi and all those guys get in the Twitter, and the response where Matt Taibbi gets audited. I mean, which is just wild. I mean, it's just so blatant and so in your face.
Yeah, it's weird. No, I mean, the degree to which, and by the way, Jack didn't really know this, but the degree to which Twitter was simply an arm of the government was not well understood by the public, and it was whatever the official government. I mean, it was like Pravda, basically. A state publication is the way to think of old Twitter. It was a state publication.
And was the justification from their perspective that they are progressive liberals, they have the right intentions, it's important that they stay in power, the progressive liberals stay in government and power because this is their.
There was basically oppression of any views that would even, I would say, be considered middle of the road, but certainly anything on the right. I'm not talking about like far right. I'm just talking mildly right. The people like Republicans were suppressed at 10 times the rate of Democrats. Now that's because old Twitter was fundamentally controlled by the far left. It was like completely controlled by the far left, and that's why I say like San Francisco, Berkeley is a niche ideology. It's hard to say like, is there a place that's more far left than San Francisco, Berkeley?
Maybe Portland,
but it's like
right there.
It's like it's those two places are the most far left places in America.
Yeah.
So from their standpoint, everything is to the right, including moderates.
Right.
So now, if you internalize a far left position, everything seems wrong to you that is not far left.
Right.
And so they naturally oppressed anything that didn't agree with their view. That's why I say that it was an accidental far left information weapon. So because it's like Silicon Valley attracts the smartest engineers, the smartest sort of technologists and programmers from around the world. They created an information weapon that was then harnessed by the far left, who could not themselves create the weapon, but happened to be co-located where the technologists were.
It happened to be aligned politically with the people that possessed it.
The technologists generally are moderate, maybe moderate left. They're not far left. That's why I say San Francisco Francisco, Berkeley. It doesn't even extend to South San Francisco or even to Palo Alto. So SF Berkeley is the most far left, perhaps, in a competition with Portland, but I'd say SF Berkeley is more far left even than Portland. Like literally in America, we're talking about an area that's maybe a 10-mile radius. And so normally the negative effects of a far left ideology would be geographically limited to a 10-mile radius. That's like it's small, like so any bad effects of that ideology would be geographically constrained under normal circumstances and have been in the past. But when you have basically a technological megaphone, which was Twitter and social media in general, suddenly the far left are handed a megaphone to Earth, an incredibly powerful technology weapon that they themselves could not create, but they happen to be co-located with the technologists who created it by accident.
Is it shocking that more people don't understand how dangerous that is?
I think some people understand.
Some people do.
Some people understand. So, I mean, from the standpoint of some of the people who used to be at Twitter, that people are like, well, it's a big shift to the right. That is correct. It is a shift to the right because everything is to the right if you're far left. Everything is to the right. But how many far left people have actually been suspended or banned from Twitter now X? Zero. So it's really just moved to the center, but from the perspective of the far left, it's moved to the right. It's like everything's relative.
The difference in moderation.
Sorry, I should say, it propagated that far left philosophy not just to America, but to everywhere on Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the same level of suppression in other countries as well?
Yes.
But the Taliban is on Twitter, right?
Like, I always think of like, hey, Mr. Taliban, tally me a banana. Hey, Mr. Taliban.
I mean, there's definitely some people on Twitter that are...
Daylight coming, I want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the point is from my standpoint, that XFK Twitter should represent the sort of collective consciousness of humanity. So now that means that there are going to be views on there that you don't like or disagree with, but that's humanity. So are you going to exclude them or not? Now, I mean, if somebody breaks the law, then the account is suspended. I mean, if they actively advocate murder, then the account is suspended. We do have what call like the kind of United Nations exclusion rule, which is that you can have, say, the Ayatollah who would prefer that Israel didn't exist, for example. But he's allowed to go to the UN building in New York. And in fact, generally officials from Iran do in fact go to the UN building in New York, even though they're a heavily sanctioned country. So I think that there's merit to having, just like there's some merit to the UN. One can disagree with the UN, and I think we shouldn't have a world government that we bow down to. But in fact, that's risky for civilization. But I think you do want to have the leaders of countries represented on social media.